Admiral Park Jin-woo stepped onto the bridge of his ship, the Taigukki. The metal floor made soft sounds under his boots as he walked to the large window that showed the darkness of space. His uniform was clean but not fancy, just like everything else on the ship. He was a man of 50 years with gray hair and calm eyes that had seen many battles. "Sir, the alien ships are back," said Lieutenant Kim So-young from her chair at the control desk. Her voice was steady, but Jin-woo could hear the hidden tension. She was young, maybe 25, with short black hair and quick fingers that moved across the glowing buttons. Jin-woo nodded slowly and looked at the screen that showed 3 strange ships moving through space near Earth's outer planets. The ships looked like giant metal spiders with too many legs, painted in dark red colors that seemed to drink the starlight. These were Zephyrian scout ships, and they had been watching human space for 2 weeks now. What are they doing now? Jin-woo asked. "Same thing as yesterday, sir. They scan our patrol ships, count our weapons, and record everything they see." So-young turned in her chair to look at him. "Should we chase them away?" "No. Let them look all they want." Jin-woo walked to another screen that showed their own fleet. 12 human ships floated in formation, and they looked old and beaten up. The hulls had dents and dark marks from space dust. Some of the metal plates seemed loose, and the engines glowed with weak yellow light instead of the bright blue of newer ships. But Jin-woo knew the truth. Hidden inside those ugly hulls were weapons that could turn planets into dust. The weak yellow glow was just a disguise covering fusion reactors that could power entire cities. The loose plates had armor made from materials that did not exist anywhere else in the galaxy. On the alien ship called Blood Drinker, Commander Vextar looked at his own screens with happy eyes. He was tall and thin with purple skin and 4 arms that ended in sharp claws. His species had conquered 15 other races in the past 100 years, and humans would be number 16. "What do you see?" Vextar asked the science officer. "Very weak ships, Commander. Their weapons are old projectile guns that shoot metal bullets. Their shields can barely stop space rocks. Their engines are slow fusion types that our ships had 200 years ago." The science officer made clicking sounds that meant laughter in their language. "These humans are even weaker than the Deltans were." Vextar remembered the Deltans. They had surrendered after seeing just one Zephyrian warship. Their planet was now a mining colony, and the Deltans worked in the deep caves digging precious metals for their new masters. "How many ships do they have in total?" Vextar asked. "Our spies count maybe 300 ships in their entire space fleet. Most are cargo vessels or tiny patrol boats like these." The science officer pointed at the human ships on the screen. "We could conquer them with just 50 of our cruisers." What the Zephyrians did not know was that every human cargo ship carried weapon systems hidden in fake containers. Every patrol boat had sensors so advanced they could detect a single atom of alien metal from 1,000,000 kilometers away. And the 300 ships they had counted were just the ones humanity wanted them to see. Jin-woo watched as the alien scouts finished their work and started to leave. Their ships moved away with smooth grace, heading back to wherever they came from. He knew they would report to their leaders that Earth was helpless and ready for conquest. "Sir," said Ensign Lee Min-ho from the weapons station. He was the youngest person on the bridge, barely 22 years old with nervous hands and a voice that sometimes cracked. "Why do we let them spy on us? We could destroy all 3 ships right now, and they would never know what hit them." Jin-woo smiled but did not turn around. "Because, Min-ho, sometimes the best way to win a war is to let your enemy think they have already won." He walked back to his command chair and sat down. "They see weak humans in old ships. They do not see the quantum torpedoes hidden in our cargo bays or the gravity shields that could stop their best weapons." So-young looked confused. "But, sir, what if they attack innocent people because they think we cannot fight back?" "They will attack," Jin-woo said quietly. "That is what their kind does. But when they do, they will learn that humanity has been very, very polite up until now." He pressed a button on his chair arm. "All ships, maintain masquerade protocols. Continue standard patrol patterns. Show them exactly what they expect to see." The human ships moved slowly through space, looking like tired guard dogs protecting a sleeping house. But Jinwoo knew that when the time came, these tired dogs would show their true teeth. In the distance, Earth turned peacefully in its orbit, blue and green and beautiful. Soon, that peace would be tested. But humanity was ready, even if they pretended not to be. The space around Earth suddenly filled with enemy ships. 500 Zephyrian warships appeared like angry hornets, their red hulls glowing in the sunlight. They had come to conquer what they thought was a weak human world. Admiral Lee Dongmin sat deep underground, in a secret bunker beneath the city of Seoul. The walls around him were covered with screens showing the alien fleet above. He was a careful man with steady hands and gray eyes that missed nothing. For 30 years, he had prepared for this day. "They are moving into attack formation," reported Major Park DeYoung from her station. She was watching the enemy ship spread out like a giant net around Earth. 5 battle groups, sir. They have enough firepower to crack a moon. Lee Dongmin nodded calmly. "Signal all defense platforms. Begin Operation Humble Shield." He pressed several buttons on his control panel. "Remember, we are supposed to be desperate and scared." High above Earth, Captain Choi Min-jun commanded the orbital defense station called Bulguksa. It looked like a simple metal ring with weapons bolted on the outside. The paint was old and faded, and some of the armor plates had fake rust marks. But hidden inside that plain shell were weapons that could destroy entire fleets. "Sir, they're firing on us," said Ensign Yoon Ji-hai. She was young and new to space combat, but her voice stayed calm as bright plasma beams shot past her station. The enemy weapons lit up space like deadly fireworks. Min-jun watched the tactical display carefully. "Return fire on their cruisers only. Make it look like we are aiming for their weakest ships." He turned to his weapons officer. "Use the old laser cannons, not the plasma arrays. We want them to think these are our best weapons." The human defense platforms began to shoot back. Their laser beams reached out across space and struck Zephyrian ships. But Min-jun was very careful about which ships to hit. He destroyed the smaller cruisers and damaged some destroyers, but he let the big battleships advance closer to Earth. On the Zephyrian flagship Death's Wing, Commander Vextar watched his smaller ships explode and felt angry but not worried. "They are targeting our escorts first," he told his officers. "Classic defensive strategy from a weak enemy. They hope to reduce our numbers before we reach their planet." "Should we pull back the battleships?" asked his tactical officer. "No. Let them waste their shots on our expendable vessels. Soon we will be close enough to use our heavy weapons on their cities." Vex stars for arms moved across the control boards. Then these humans will surrender like all the others. What Vextar did not know was that every human weapon was being fired at exactly 1/10 of its real power. The laser cannons that seemed to struggle against his armor were actually holding back enough energy to cut his flagship in half. The defense platforms that appeared damaged were secretly rerouting power to hidden weapon systems. Back on Earth, Lee Dongmin watched the battle progress according to plan. "Status report on Platform 7, he ordered. "Showing critical damage on all external sensors, sir," replied Major Park DeYoung with a small smile. "Actually, we just moved our main reactor to backup power and activated the stealth shields. The aliens think it is dead." On Platform 7, Lieutenant Kong Subin looked at her screens and shook her head in amazement. "Sir, I cannot believe this is working. They really think we are barely holding on." Her commander, Captain Song Hye-won, stood behind her chair watching the alien ships move closer. "That is because they see what they expect to see. They have conquered so many weak races that they cannot imagine meeting a strong one." The battle continued for 6 long hours. Human ships appeared to explode in bright flashes, but the crews had actually teleported to safety using technology the aliens had never seen. Defense platforms seemed to fail and go dark, but they were really activating advanced stealth systems. Whole sections of Earth's orbital defenses looked destroyed, but hidden backup stations were coming online. Finally, the surviving Zephyrian ships began to retreat. They had lost more than 300 vessels, much more than they expected. Commander Vextar stared at his tactical display in confusion. How did they fight so well? He asked the science officer. Their weapons were primitive, but they used them very cleverly. Perhaps we underestimated their tactical abilities, the science officer replied. But look at their losses, Commander. They have almost no orbital defenses left. A second attack will finish them easily. Far below on Earth, Admiral Lee Dongmin reviewed the real battle reports. 0 human deaths. 0 ships actually destroyed. All defensive systems working perfectly and still hidden. He allowed himself a small smile. Signal Fleet Command, he ordered. Phase 2 complete. The enemy believes we are nearly defeated. Prepare for their second wave. Major Park DeYoung looked at the fake damage reports they were sending to alien spies. Sir, what if they do not attack again? They will, Lee Dongmin said quietly. Pride will make them try once more. And when they do, we might have to stop being quite so polite. Above them, Earth continued to turn peacefully in space, protected by guardians the enemy had never truly seen. Captain Song Hae-won walked through the burning ruins of New Busan Colony on Mars. The red dirt was mixed with ash from destroyed buildings, and the air smelled of smoke and metal. She stepped carefully around pieces of broken glass and twisted metal that had once been homes where families lived. How many? She asked quietly, looking at the rescue workers pulling people from the rubble. 2,000 dead, Captain, replied Sergeant Kim Tae-jun. His uniform was dirty with dust, and his young face looked older after seeing so much destruction. They hit the schools first, then the hospitals. This was not a military target. Hae-won felt anger growing hot in her chest, but her voice stayed calm. She had been a soldier for 15 years, and she knew how to control her emotions. But this was different. The Zephyrians had crossed a line that should never be crossed. Her communication device buzzed with an incoming message. Petty Officer Kong Soo-bin's voice came through clearly. Captain, we have new orders from Earth Command. Authorization code Red Dragon 7. Hae-won knew that code. It meant the gloves are coming off. Understood. Signal all ships in the fleet. Drop masquerade protocols immediately. Repeat, drop all masquerade protocols. Across human space, things began to change. Ships that had looked old and broken suddenly revealed their true forms. Fake rust fell away like dead skin, showing hulls made of metal that gleamed like mirrors. Weak yellow engine lights changed to brilliant blue-white stars. Weapons that had been hidden inside cargo containers emerged and locked onto alien targets. The battleship Seoul's Vengeance had been disguised as a simple transport vessel for 3 months. Now Captain Ryu Min-ah stood on its real bridge as the ship's outer shell fell away in carefully planned pieces. What emerged was beautiful and terrible, a warship 50 times larger than anything the aliens had seen, covered in weapons that had existed only in theory until now. All systems showing green, Captain, reported Lieutenant Park Hyun-ju from the engineering station. Quantum generators at full power. 0-point energy collectors online. We are ready for combat. Min-ah nodded and looked at the tactical display. 1,200 Zephyrian ships were approaching Earth in a massive formation. They had brought their finest warships and their deadliest weapons, expecting to finish what they started. Target their flagship, she ordered. Prepare the quantum lance. On the Zephyrian Command ship Deathwing, Commander Vextar stared at his sensors in complete confusion. What is happening? Where did these ships come from? His 4 arms moved frantically across his controls as new contacts appeared on his screen. Huge human vessels that had not been their moment before. Commander, their energy readings are impossible, his science officer reported with fear in his voice. One of their ships is showing power output equal to our entire fleet combined. This cannot be real. It is real, said a calm human voice in perfect Zephyrian language. The main screen flickered and showed a human woman in a dark blue uniform. This is Captain Ryu Min-ah of the Terran Defense Force. You have attacked civilian targets. You have murdered children. Your war is now with humanity's true military. Lieutenant Park Deun sat at the weapons station of the battleship Sejong. She was only 24 years old, but she had trained on weapon systems that most species could not even imagine. Her fingers moved across controls that manipulated the basic forces of reality itself. 0-point energy extraction complete, she reported to her captain. Target locked on enemy flagship. Fire, came the simple order. The beam that shot from Sejong was not like any weapon the galaxy had ever seen. It did not just destroy the Zephyrian flagship. It converted every atom of the massive ship directly into pure energy. For one brief moment, there was a light brighter than a star, and then nothing remained but empty space. Similar scenes played out across the solar system as humanity showed a tiny fraction of their real power. Zephyrian battle cruisers that could flatten cities were cut apart by weapons that bent space itself. Alien fighters found themselves trapped in gravity fields that crushed them like tin cans. Entire formations of enemy ships simply vanished as human vessels demonstrated technology that seemed to break the laws of physics. Commander Vextar watched his fleet die around him and felt something he had never experienced before: true fear. "Retreat!" he screamed into his communication system. All ships retreat immediately. Only 60 Zephyrian vessels escaped from the 1,200 that had attacked. As they fled into hyperspace, a message followed them on all frequencies. Ambassador Lim Tae-hyun appeared on every screen. Speaking in calm, perfect Zephyrian, "This is Earth's final warning to your empire and any others who might consider attacking us," he said. His voice was polite, but cold as winter ice. "We have spent centuries pretending to be weak because we hoped the galaxy would learn to live in peace. Today you have shown us that some species only understand strength." The image of the human diplomat filled screens across known space as a message was broadcast to every world, every ship, every government in the galaxy. "Attack our people again," Taehyun continued, "and we will stop pretending to be polite." The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy to wonder what humanity had been hiding all these years. Dr. John Yee-Jean sat in her small office at the Galactic Research Institute, surrounded by towers of data files and glowing computer screens. She was one of the few scientists who had studied Earth closely over the past 50 years, and what she was discovering made her hands shake as she turned the pages. "This cannot be right," she whispered to herself, looking at energy consumption reports from human colonies. The numbers showed that a simple farming world with only 50,000 people was using more power than some industrial planets with billions of inhabitants. Her research partner, Dr. Kil Woo-sung, floated into the room. His species looked like large jellyfish with tentacles, and he moved by pushing air through special organs. "What has you so worried, Eugene?" "Look at these reports from the human colony on Kepler 442b, she said, pointing at her screen. "They claim to grow food crops, but their power usage suggests they are running massive industrial operations underground. And here," she switched to another file, "their mining colony on Proxima 7 shows almost no mineral extraction, but they import enough rare metals to build a fleet of battleships." Wu Sung's tentacles curled with confusion, which meant he was thinking hard. Perhaps they are simply inefficient with their energy systems? "No, that is what I thought too. But look at this." Yi-Jean brought up another screen, showing shipping records. Every human cargo vessel that visits other worlds carries sensor equipment that is more advanced than our best military scanners. They say it is for navigation, but these sensors could map an entire planet in minutes. Meanwhile, on the other side of the galaxy, the Zephyrian homeworld was preparing for total war. In the great crystal dome that served as their government building, War Marshal Crixvan addressed thousands of military leaders from dozens of different species. "The humans have made fools of us all," he declared, his voice echoing through the vast chamber. "They pretended to be weak while building weapons that could destroy our finest ships. But they're still only one small species. Together, we can crush them." The assembled delegates roared their approval. Representatives from the Altarian Empire, the Vegan Confederacy, the Rigelian Horde, and many others stood and pledged their fleets to the Great Alliance. Soon, the largest military force in galactic history would march against Earth. What none of them noticed was Agent Moon Kyung-soo sitting quietly in the visitors' gallery. He appeared to be a simple trade representative from a minor species, but tiny devices hidden in his clothing were recording everything. Advanced neural implants, invisible to any scanner the aliens possessed, transmitted the information directly back to Earth. The agent looked like an ordinary middle-aged businessman with gray hair and a kind face. He had been living among the Zephyrians for 12 years, and they trusted him completely. They had no idea that he was one of thousands of human operatives spread throughout the galaxy. On Earth, President Amboare sat in a secure bunker deep beneath the Blue House. The room was filled with screens showing intelligence reports from across known space. She was a small woman with sharp eyes who had led humanity through many difficult decisions. "How many assets do we have in place?" she asked General Kim Woo-jin, who stood beside her reviewing tactical reports. 17,000 confirmed operatives across 43 different species governments, he replied, plus monitoring stations in every major star system and our deep space installations that they still have not detected. Boare nodded slowly. "And our defensive preparations?" "Complete, Madam President. The Moon Defense Grid came online yesterday. Our asteroid belt mining operations have produced enough ships to replace our entire visible fleet 10 times over. And the Jupiter shipyards finished the last of the Titan-class battleships this morning." What the general did not say, because it was too classified even for this room, was that humanity had been building secret bases throughout the galaxy for over a century. While other species focus on their home systems, human engineers have been hollow out asteroids, building hidden stations on dead moons, and placing weapon platforms in the empty space between stars. Back at the Research Institute, Dr. John Eugene made a discovery that made her blood run cold. She had been studying old records of galactic conflicts, and she found a pattern that nobody else had noticed. "Wu Sung, look at this," she called her partner. "Remember the Andromedan War 30 years ago? The one that ended suddenly when both sides agreed to peace." "Yes, everyone said it was because they realized the war was too costly. But look at these communication logs I found in the archives. 3 days before the peace treaty, both sides received anonymous messages containing detailed information about each other's military weaknesses. Messages that could only have come from someone who had been watching both fleets very carefully." She pulled up more files. "And here, the Centauri Civil War that ended 20 years ago. Same thing, anonymous intelligence that led to a peace agreement. And the vegan-Rigelian border dispute. And the Tau Ceti independence movement." Wu Sung's tentacles went completely still, which meant he was shocked. "Are you saying someone's been secretly interfering in galactic conflict for decades?" Yi Jin looked at the star map showing human space, so small compared to the great empires around it. "Not someone," she whispered. "The humans. They have been watching us all." The Coalition fleet stretched across space like a metal ocean. 2,000 warships from 18 different species moved together toward Earth, their hulls gleaming in the starlight. It was the largest military force the galaxy had ever assembled, carrying enough weapons to destroy entire solar systems. Fleet Commander Zalthex stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Galactic Crusher. He was a massive creature with thick armor plates and 6 powerful arms, leader of the most feared warrior race in known space. Behind him, holographic displays showed the incredible size of his armada. "Today we end the human threat forever," he announced his officers. "They may have new weapons, but they cannot stand against the combined might of the galaxy's greatest civilizations." What Zalthex expected to find was a desperate human fleet trying to protect their homeworld. What he found instead made his warrior heart skip a beat. Ships began appearing from empty space, materializing as their cloaking fields dropped away. But these were not the small patrol vessels the aliens had seen before. The first ship to reveal itself was 50 kilometers long, its hull crackling with energy fields that made space itself bend around it. Admiral Cho Sung-ho stood on the bridge of the massive vessel, called Taejongdi. He was a calm man with silver hair, who had spent 40 years preparing for this moment. Around him, his crew worked at control stations that managed weapon systems beyond anything the Coalition could imagine. "Open a channel to all enemy ships," he ordered quietly. "Let every species in the galaxy hear this." His image appeared on screens throughout the Coalition fleet and was broadcast to every world capable of receiving transmissions. "I am Admiral Cho Sung-ho of the Terran Defense Force. You are now facing humanity, without pretense. You have one chance to surrender. Choose wisely." Zalthex roared with laughter that shook his bridge. "One human fleet against 2,000 of our finest ships? Attack. Destroy them all." The Coalition opened fire with everything they had. plasma cannons that could melt mountains, antimatter torpedoes that could crack moons, and energy beams that burned hotter than stars all struck the human ships at once. The amount of firepower would have vaporized entire planets. But the human vessels did not even slow down. Captain Ryu Minna commanded the battleship Hanbando, one of humanity's newest designs. As alien weapons splashed harmlessly against their shields, she activated systems that had been impossible dreams just years before. Gravity well generators online, she reported to the fleet. Beginning local space-time manipulation, Lieutenant Park-Dune worked at her station with steady hands, controlling forces that most species thought were myths. Sir, I have weapon locks on their entire front line. Quantum disruptors are charged and ready. Fire at will, Minna said simply. What happened next broke every law of physics that the coalition races understood. Space around their ships began to twist and compress. Massive battleships found themselves trapped in bubbles of compressed reality where their weapons could not function. Some vessels were stretched like rubber, their hulls pulled apart by forces they could not fight. The human ship Soul's Vengeance fired a single shot that passed through an entire formation of enemy cruisers. Where the beam touched, ships did not explode. They simply ceased to exist, converted directly into energy that lit up space like a second sun. Zalfex watched his mighty fleet being destroyed by weapons that should not exist. "This is impossible," he screamed at his science officer. "How are they bending gravity? How are they manipulating time itself?" Before anyone could answer, every screen in the coalition fleet flickered and changed. The image of President on Boare appeared, with dozens of other humans standing behind her. But these were not just any humans. They were people who had served in alien governments for decades. "People of the galaxy," Boare began, her voice calm and clear. "For the past century, humanity has served as your silent guardians. We prevented 17 potential wars, stopped 4 attempted genocides, and quietly maintained the peace you all took for granted." Behind her, Ambassador Park Hyun-woo stepped forward. The Zephyrians gasped in recognition. He had been their chief diplomatic advisor for 20 years. "We guided your government away from conflicts that would have destroyed millions of lives." Intelligence Director Lee Ji-young appeared next, and the Vegan Confederacy's leaders went pale. She had been their most trusted security chief for 15 years. "We quietly removed weapons of mass destruction before they could be used." The revelations continued as human agents revealed themselves across the galaxy. Scientists who had guided research away from dangerous weapons. Merchants who had prevented famines by maintaining supply lines. Diplomats who had ended wars before they could begin. "We never wanted to rule you," President Boare continued. "We only wanted to protect the innocent and preserve peace. We did this work in secret because we hoped you would eventually learn wisdom." Admiral Cho Sung-ho's voice joined the broadcast from his flagship. Around him, space was filled with the wreckage of the coalition fleet. "But you have forced our hand. If you will not choose peace, then peace will be chosen for you." The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy in stunned silence. The few surviving coalition ships fled into hyperspace, carrying word of humanity's true nature to every world. On Earth, people looked up at the stars and knew that the age of hiding was over. Humanity had finally shown the galaxy what they really were.